My husband, Ethan, crashes my mom's funeral with his bastard daughter, and he decides that's the best time to officially move her in. The absolute nerve. I played along, gave him a sweet little smile and a nod. Meanwhile, I was already setting a trap he'd never walk out of. The moment the funeral ended, I came home and smacked the shit out of him. The idiot actually saw me as some sheltered rich girl who knew nothing. Are you serious? I laughed. I learned how to deal with men like you at my mother's knee, fighting off her rivals. Back then, you were still a nobody stuck in some backwater town. My husband, Ethan, always praised me for being gentle, large-hearted, and understanding. I never imagined that he would see these qualities not as virtues, but as weapons to be used against me. At my mother's funeral, the tear tracks were still wet on my cheeks, when he arrived with her in tow, a girl of about 15 or 16, roughly the same age as my own daughter, Tessa. He pulled the girl to her knees before my mother's casket in the grand silent hall of the funeral home, and began to sob, a heart-wrenching theatrical display. Once he felt he had set the stage properly, he moved on to his main act. "Eleanor," he cried out to my mother's memory, his voice echoing off the marble floors, "thank you for showing me the light. You were right. I may have failed Catherine, but Crystal is still my daughter. As her father, I can't just ignore her." He paused, sniffing dramatically. "Eleanor, I will listen to you. I will take responsibility." Then he turned his tear-streaked face to me. "Catherine, my love, you are so kind, so full of grace. You won't refuse, will you? If I didn't know that my mother despised cheaters and homewreckers more than anything else on this earth, I might have actually believed his performance." The mourners scattered around the chapel stared, mouths agape. They had come to pay their respects, not to witness the premiere of a sordid family drama. My daughter, Tessa, stood beside me, her eyes wide with confusion and hurt. And why wouldn't they be? Her father had always put me on a pedestal, his constant affection, a running joke among my friends, who dubbed him the model husband. If I, his wife, had no idea he had a child this old, how could she, my best friend, Chloe, rolled up the sleeves of her black dress, ready to launch herself at him? "Ethan Vance, you are a world-class piece of shit." I was the one who held her back, a fragile, trembling smile on my face. "Ethan," I said, my voice soft and weak, "why don't you take her home first?" Ethan wrapped me in a hug, his voice thick with gratitude. "Oh, Catherine, thank you. I knew it. You are the kindest person in the world." I gently pushed him away. He was celebrating far too soon. The Sterling family name is a titan in this city. If I was going to deal with a dog, I would do it behind closed doors, not in front of an audience. We don't air our dirty laundry for public amusement. After Ethan left with the girl, I remained at the funeral home, overseeing the final arrangements. I saw the pale, drawn look on Tessa's face, and knowing she'd been by my side for days, sent her home to rest. It was 3 days later when I finally returned to the house I now owned. My mother's long illness and death had taken a piece of me. Her life had been a battlefield. My father was a notorious philanderer, and she had spent the better part of her marriage fighting his mistresses, protecting the legacy that was rightfully mine. After my father died in a car crash, she alone took the helm of Sterling Enterprises, building it into an even greater empire. Everyone saw the glamour of the Sterling women, the effortless power we projected. No one knew the hardship, the lonely nights where it was just a mother and daughter against the world, fending off vultures and condescending glares. I looked at my reflection in the hall mirror. My hair was dull, my eyes vacant. I looked like a ghost, ready to follow my mother into the grave. Shaking off the thought, I pushed open the door to the living room. There, amidst the opulent decor, sat 4 people: Ethan, his mother Sharon, an unfamiliar woman, and his illegitimate daughter, Crystal. They were watching some mindless reality show on the 80-inch screen. The expensive coffee table was littered with empty snack bags, and popcorn kernels were crushed into the Persian rug. Whatever they were watching must have been hilarious, because the smiles were still fading from their faces as they noticed me. Seeing me, their smiles widened into predatory grins. Ethan and his mother shot up to greet me. "Catherine, honey, you must be exhausted," Sharon cooed, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Go on upstairs, take a nice hot bath, and get some rest. Ethan pulled me into another hug, patting my back. Sweetheart, you are finally home. Now our family can truly be together. At the top of the grand staircase, Tessa appeared in her pajamas. She looked at me, her mouth opening and closing, her dark eyes swimming with unshed tears. On her cheek, a faint red mark was just beginning to bloom. I pushed Ethan away and beckoned to my daughter, my voice a soft caress. Tessa, darling, come here. As she came closer, the light caught her face. It wasn't just a mark. It was the clear, sharp imprint of a hand. Who did this? I asked. My voice was quiet, but inside, a cold fury was taking root. This was my only child. I had raised her for 15 years like a precious jewel. I wouldn't touch a hair on her head, no matter how much she acted out. The sterling fortune gave her the right to be a little wild, and now someone had dared to strike her. But my voice, my demeanor, has always been deceptively gentle. Ethan completely missed the danger. He was still smiling. Oh, that Brenda had to discipline her a little. Brenda. The strange woman on the couch stood up, cracking a pistachio nut between her teeth. That's me, she said, looking me up and down. I am Brenda. You can call me Brenda. After all, we're all family now. Ethan nodded, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. She's older than you, Catherine, so it's only right. It sounds more familiar, you know. Then he proceeded to explain my daughter's crime. Crystal just liked one of Tessa's dresses. I told her to give it to Crystal to wear, and she refused. Catherine, we've spoiled her too much all these years. That's why she's so selfish. Crystal is her sister. It's just a dress. What's the big deal about letting her little sister have it? A laugh escaped my lips, a genuine humorless laugh. Ethan laughed along with me. The curve of his smile was still forming when the sharp crack of my palm against his cheek echoed through the room. That one, I said, my voice dangerously calm, is for your delusion, thinking you could start a harem in my house. Have you taken a good look in the mirror lately and asked yourself if you are worthy? Ethan was stunned. He clearly never expected me to strike him. The fool. He really believed the act I'd been playing for years. My reputation as the perfect, gentle wife was so ingrained in his mind that even my closest friends had nearly forgotten the hellion I used to be. My father, for all his affairs, never dared to threaten my mother's position, partly because my mother was a formidable woman, but also because I was her ferocious protector. When I was 10, I stood before him in the kitchen, brandishing a chef's knife, my eyes red with rage. If I ever see you bring another woman into this house again, I will end you. He was scared, but his pride wouldn't let him back down in front of me. The next day, he brought a woman home. He didn't dare let her stay the night. She sat on the couch for 2 hours watching soap operas before he sent her away. He thought he'd successfully asserted his authority, until he woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of steel scraping against stone. I was there in a white nightgown, a flashlight on the floor casting a ghostly pallor on my face. The sharpening stone was on the nightstand right next to his pillow. When he opened his eyes, I gave him a wide, chilling smile. He was so terrified that he flinched, knocking his hand against the blade and slicing it open. After that, my father's affairs went deep underground. When his sleazy friends teased him for being afraid of his own daughter, he just told them, "Have one like her and see how you feel." While I was earning my reputation, what was Ethan Vance doing? If memory serves, he was working at a sawmill in some forgotten town in Oregon. I was sick of men like my father, so when it came to choosing a husband, I prioritized stability and decency. I wanted someone kind, hard-working, and honest, and so I chose Ethan, and he married into the Sterling family. And this was the surprise he gave me in return. Human nature. It's a fascinating, ugly thing. Before he could recover from the first slap, my second one landed. That one is for laying a hand on my daughter. I have one daughter, Tessa Sterling, sister. Where did she get a sister? The threshold of the Sterling family is not so low that any stray from a back alley can claim a place. My words hung in the air, followed by the crack of a third slap. And that one is for deceiving me. All these years playing the role of the perfect son, in-law, the perfect husband, the perfect father. It must have been exhausting for you. It's a real shame you never went into acting. You would have won an Oscar. I put all my strength into each blow. Ethan's face was already swelling, but his act was a deeply ingrained habit. Even now, his voice was soft, pleading. Catherine, I know this is my fault, but our years together. Can't you just listen to my explanation? It was an accident with Brenda. You are the only one in my heart. I used to melt at his sweet talk. Now, his words made my stomach turn. You are the only one in my heart. Right. I suppose your heart and your pants are managed by two different departments. A fourth slap, harder than all the rest, sent a jolt of pain up my arm. And that, I hissed, is for being a despicable parasite, for daring to desecrate my mother's memory at her own funeral. I pointed a trembling finger toward the grand front door. Pack your things, all of you, and get out. When I came home tonight, I had no intention of giving Ethan a second chance. A man's infidelity is never a one-time mistake. It's a pattern. And to say this was Ethan's first mistake was giving him far too much credit. Of course, a man who could scheme and wait patiently for years, until my mother's death, wouldn't be driven off by a few harsh words. While Ethan could still muster the energy to plead with me, his mother, Sharon, could not. Catherine, have you lost your mind? She shrieked. How dare you hit my son? Now that Eleanor is gone, Sterling Enterprises needs Ethan to run it. Without him, the company will be bankrupt before you know it. I rubbed my stinging palm, a small smile playing on my lips. It needs him to run it. Who else? She scoffed. You are a stay at home mom. What do you do besides raise a child and watch television? Do you have any idea how much Ethan has done for your mother and the company all these years? With her gone, who else is qualified for the CEO position? You? So that was it. The moment my mother died, they thought the Sterling Empire was theirs for the taking. I remembered Chloe joking when I got married. Are you sure this guy isn't a gold digger just waiting to inherit everything? I had laughed it off, insisting Ethan wasn't that kind of person. Well, the joke was on me. But the Sterling fortune would never fall into the hands of vultures like the Vances. His mother asked who else was qualified to be CEO. I smiled sweetly. Yes, me. You, she sneered. Me. It wasn't just Sharon who didn't take me seriously. Ethan was looking at me like I was a pathetic joke. His illegitimate daughter, Crystal, seemed utterly bored by my desperate struggle. She stood up, grabbed a bag of chips from the coffee table, and headed for the stairs. This is so loud. I am going to bed. Try to keep it down. Oh, and Tessa, that bed in my room is way too hard. I don't like it. I am switching with you tonight. A pang of regret hit me. I had sent Tessa home early to rest, only to have her walk into this nightmare. There was no way to undo the harm, but I could damn well make the Vances pay for it. With interest. I turned and walked to the front door, pulling it open. Outside stood my three best friends, Chloe, Zoe, and Mia. Behind them stood 7 massive men in tank tops, their biceps bulging unnaturally. They looked like professional movers, or perhaps professional kneecap breakers. I welcomed them in with a gracious smile, and closed the door behind them. My voice was back to its usual sweet, wifely tone. Please, make yourselves at home, I said. And don't be gentle. The scene descended into chaos. The men Chloe had brought were efficient and principled. They hit hard and believed in equal opportunity. They didn't pull their punches just because Brenda was a woman, or because Sharon was an old shrew. And adhering to the principle that a family should stick together through thick and thin, I made sure to remind them. It here is a younger one upstairs. I could tell these guys were professionals. Hearing my instruction, one of them broke off, sprinted towards the stairs, and for a little flourish, did a backflip at the bottom before taking the steps 3 at a time. Crystal tried to run, but she stood no chance. In moments she was dragged down and thrown into the fray. A moment ago the Vances had been lounging on my sofa, eating my snacks. Now it was my friends and me on the sofa, nibbling on cheese and crackers from a platter Mia had thoughtfully brought. The 4 of us watched the spectacle with relish, feeling a wave of nostalgia. This really takes me back, Zoe mused. The 4 of us used to run this town. They called us the 4 horsewomen of Northgate Prep for a reason. Damn right, Chloe added. They should count themselves lucky we've been retired for years. Otherwise, they never would have made it past the front gate. After a while, I called over to Tessa, who was watching from the landing, completely stunned. "Honey, come sit with Mom." She walked over numbly. As soon as she sat down, I stood up and cracked my knuckles. "Mommy protected you too much, sweetheart. You didn't know how cruel the world could be. Now that you do, it's time for a lesson. If you ever run into garbage like this again, you don't back down, you fight. And if the sky falls, Mom will be there to hold it up for you." My 3 friends stood up with me. We shared a look, a smile, and then we joined the fight. Of course, by the time we waded in, the Vance family was already thoroughly pummeled. They were 4 heaps on the floor, each more pathetic than the last. Our participation was less of a fight and more of a finishing touch. But it was a necessary step. First, for our own satisfaction, and second, to acquire some convincing evidence of a struggle. A few scratches, a torn sleeve. By the time the police arrived, I was sitting on the sofa, my hair disheveled, my dress artfully torn at the shoulder, a long scratch on my forearm. I was sobbing quietly into Chloe's comforting embrace. They attacked us first," I whimpered. I shakily played a recording on my phone. It was the conversation from when I first came home. The part where I asked who hit my daughter, and Ethan casually replied, "It's just a dress." Even the officers frowned, casting a cold, disdainful look at Ethan. My friends, all consummate actresses, were crying even louder than I was. The 7 burly men who had done the heavy lifting had swapped their tank tops for neat t-shirts, and were now standing respectfully to the side, acting as my eyewitnesses. "Officer, I can testify. It was that old lady who hit Mrs. Vance first." "That's right, officer. I saw it too. It wasn't Mrs. Vance's fault at all." It was all very convincing. In the end, the incident was logged as a domestic dispute. The image of me, the supposed victim, smiling sweetly as the Vances were carried out on stretchers might have seemed odd, but they didn't press the matter. "They won't dare," I told Chloe later. "He still thinks he can take over Sterling Enterprises. He can't afford a public scandal right now. Making a scene would only hurt him." I was right. That night, Ethan sent me a text message from his hospital bed. "Catherine, you just wait. Without me, you'll run this company into the ground." The fool thought that because I wasn't officially on the payroll, the company would default to him. He'd learned a lot from my mother, it was true. But he never stopped to ask himself why I'd made sure he was in a hospital bed in the first place. To deal with a small-timer like Ethan Vance, I had 100 different methods. The problem was that after years of working under my mother, he had cultivated his own faction within Sterling Enterprises, the Vance loyalists. I couldn't exactly march in and take my rightful place as CEO with him still in the picture. The first few days Ethan was in the hospital, he bombarded me with angry texts. Meanwhile, I was busy. I walked into Sterling Enterprises, claimed my mother's office, and called my first board meeting. Just as I predicted, Ethan kept our domestic dispute quiet. His loyalists didn't even know he was hospitalized. When they saw me, they asked why I wasn't on that European vacation with Ethan. I had to smile. His clumsy lie played right into my hands. "Oh, we couldn't both be away at the same time," I said smoothly. "Ain't here is too much to do here. His mother is visiting, so I insisted he take her on a nice long trip. Just the 2 of them." When Ethan got word of my presence at the company, he couldn't stand it. On the 5th day, he showed up, cast on his leg and arm, sitting in a wheelchair. We met at the elevator bank. I stood tall, not even bothering to look directly at him, just catching his reflection in the polished brass doors with a smirk. His jaw tightened in fury, but with employees around, he had to play his part. He forced a pathetic smile. "Sweetheart, I missed you. Just came by to see how you were doing." The elevator arrived. I held the door and told his nurse to wait, then gestured for Ethan to go ahead. His eye twitched. He was the most injured of the bunch, with a broken leg and arm, still in casts. But at work, he was desperate to maintain the facade of our happy marriage. He complied, using his one good arm to push the wheels of his chair, a truly pathetic portrait of perseverance. I chuckled under my breath and strode past him into my his former office. By the time he finally wheeled himself in and closed the door, I had already finished half a cup of tea. Beads of sweat dotted his forehead. His first words were, "Catherine, are you insane? You, in this chair. The whole industry will laugh at you. You don't have the skills." I walked over to him and gave his cast, encased leg a sharp kick. "Say that again," I said sweetly. "I didn't quite hear you." Tears of pain welled in his eyes. He glared at me, then quickly switched back to his deep, in-love persona. "Catherine, I am sorry my tone was harsh, but I am just worried about you. Do you want to see your mother's life's work go down the drain?" I pulled a document from my desk and threw it in his lap, the divorce papers. "It's not our mother." "It's my mother," I corrected him. "Sign it, and then get as far away from me as possible." Ethan scanned the papers, his expression turning ugly. "I get nothing, Catherine. Can you really be this cruel? You are the man who married into my family's money." "What did you expect?" I laughed. "Should we review our prenuptial agreement?" For women like my mother and me, who had been burned by my father's infidelity, becoming a starry-eyed romantic was nearly impossible. As much as I might have once cared for Ethan, the prenup was non-negotiable. It could be summarized in one sentence. I was happy to let him enjoy my money, but what's mine is mine. The idea that he could get my heart and my fortune was pure fantasy. Ethan refused to sign. "I am not divorcing you. You want a divorce, Catherine. Forget it." Of course. He wasn't ready to give up on the golden goose that was Sterling Enterprises. I nodded and took the papers back. I had tried to be civil, to handle this quietly within the confines of the office, to avoid gossip. Since he refused the easy way, we would do it the hard way. I threw open my office door, wheeled him out into the main bullpen, and kicked his wheelchair over. "I have an announcement to make," I declared to the stunned employees. "Ethan Vance is fired. I want all relevant departments to complete the handover of his duties immediately." For years Ethan had swaggered through these halls, a king in a borrowed castle. Being humiliated like this in front of everyone finally broke him. For the first time he dropped the act and looked at me like a cornered animal. "Catherine, you bitch, you crazy bitch. You'll regret this. You just wait for Sterling Enterprises to go bankrupt." Excellent. Still had the energy to threaten me, even while half broken on the floor. I gave his injured leg another good kick for emphasis. "Don't worry," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Even if I go bankrupt, I won't be paying to raise your bastard child." The information in that sentence was explosive. I was certain that by the end of the day, the entire company would know the story of Ethan Vance, the gold digger who tried to bite off more than he could chew, and failed. Ethan left in a storm of fury. Before he was even out of the building, he sent another threat. "Catherine, you will beg me to come back." I didn't bother to reply. The man was delusional. However, I had underestimated just how low he would stoop. When he realized he couldn't get to me directly, he went after my daughter. I didn't find out right away. It was about a month and a half later that I noticed Tessa's mood had soured. She'd been subdued since the split, but this was different. A deep melancholy had settled over her, and her eyes were often red and puffy, as if she'd been crying. When I asked what was wrong, she would just shake her head and refuse to talk. I understood. Teenagers have their secrets. They don't want to tell their parents everything. That was fine. I wouldn't force her. I have other ways of finding things out. Chloe's son Leo went to the same private school as Tessa, a year below her. The next day, I paid Chloe a visit. Leo, a huge fan of spy movies, was thrilled when I asked him to be my special agent. His mission to find out, without Tessa knowing, what was bothering her at school. "Aunt Cat," he said, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Mission accepted. I won't let you down." The very next day, I had my answer. That bastard Ethan had enrolled his illegitimate daughter, Crystal, in Tessa's school at the start of the semester. She was in the same grade, the same homeroom. And while Crystal might lack any semblance of class or manners at home, at school, she was a master manipulator, a picture, perfect mean girl hiding behind a facade of vulnerability. She played the part of the fragile, misunderstood victim, attracting a clique of enablers who fought her battles for her. They constantly made snide remarks and passive, aggressive digs at Tessa, Rich people think they're so special. It must be nice to look down on everyone. They had successfully painted my daughter as a spoiled, arrogant brat. I only wish Tessa were less reasonable. If she had just a sliver of the fire I had at her age, Ethan wouldn't have dared transfer that girl into her class in the first place. I had Leo send me the names and details of the students who were tormenting my daughter. The following morning, I made breakfast as usual. After Tessa left for school, I took my time. I did my makeup, a bold red lip. I put on a stunning scarlet power dress. I went out and got a manicure, my nails lacquered in a matching shade of crimson. Just as I was about to head to the school to raise some hell, I got a text from my special agent, Leo. Aunt Cat, it's bad. Tessa's being bullied. That girl Crystal accused Tessa of spilling ink on her, and now she and her friends have locked Tessa in a bathroom and are throwing water on her. The angrier I got, the calmer my smile became. By the time I pulled up to the school, my 3 friends were already there, waiting for me by the entrance. Chloe was leaning against her car, casually holding a baseball bat. It was a beautiful, nostalgic sight. I cracked my knuckles. It's just one tacky little snake. I don't need backup for this. They exchanged a look. Oh, we're not backup, Mia said with a grin. We're here to stop you from accidentally committing a felony. I had to laugh, as if I am a law-abiding citizen. The moment the bell rang for the end of class, I strode into my daughter's classroom. Tessa saw me and froze, her lips trembling as her eyes welled up. She had indeed been doused with water. Her hair was still damp, and her designer skirt was wrinkled and stained. I gave her a reassuring look and walked directly to the little snake's desk. Crystal, is it? I asked, my voice as sweet as honey. I hear you led a little party that locked my daughter in the bathroom and threw water on her. Is that true? My voice was so gentle it made my friends, who had followed me in, shiver. Crystal stood up, her face a perfect mask of pitiable innocence. Mrs. Vance, please don't blame my friends. They were just standing up for what's right. They couldn't stand by and watch how Tessa treats people. She looked down at her chest, pointing to a black spot on her shirt no bigger than a fingernail. Ink. Impressive. I patted her shoulder. If I am not mistaken, Crystal, that's one of Tessa's skirts you are wearing, isn't it? Her expression flickered. So, she wasn't afraid to wear my daughter's clothes, flaunting her stolen prize, but now she remembered to be scared. This girl was a piece of work, a true professional manipulator. She immediately tried to change the subject. I don't blame Tessa, really, she said, her voice trembling. I know she didn't mean it. Don't worry. I'll try my best to be good sisters with her, good classmates. Before she could finish her little speech, I slapped her across the face. Good sisters? I asked, my voice dropping an octave. Crystal, you are an illegitimate child, a dirty little secret. Who gave you the right to even think you could be Tessa Sterling's sister? Crystal was completely stunned. I slapped her again, a sharp backhand. The last time you were in my house, I let you off easy. Did that make you think you were actually something special? I grabbed her by the hair, forcing her swollen face towards her shocked friends. All of you, take a good look. This is the bastard child my daughter's trash father kept on the side. She steals my daughter's clothes, tries to take over her room, and now she comes to school to torment her. I dragged her in front of Tessa. Apologize now. She wouldn't, so I slapped her again, and again, and again, until a trickle of blood ran from her nose. Finally, she sobbed. I am sorry. I let her go. Now, I said, my voice returning to its placid tone, what are the names of your little helpers? One by one, the students who had bullied my daughter were identified. Most of them were terrified, crying and stammering apologies. All except one tall, arrogant boy. So what? He sneered. Just because you are rich, you think you can do whatever you want. I turned my full attention to him. Son, today I am operating on principle, but if you insist on making this about money, fine. We can play that game. I am happy to prove your point. I smiled. Leo, I believe you sent me some information on a Mr. Connor Hughes, a student athlete. Father works security at the downtown branch of Sterling Bank. Mother is on the cleaning crew at the Sterling Tower, am I correct? Do you honestly believe I can't have both of your parents unemployed with a single phone call? The color drained from his face. His defiant posture collapsed, and he turned to my daughter, his head bowed in shame. Tessa, I am sorry, I was wrong. See, arrogance without power to back it up is just a fragile shell, easily shattered. I then turned to the teacher who had come running. I trust the school will handle these perpetrators of bullying with the severity they deserve. Within half an hour, the school administration had announced disciplinary action over the PA system. Crystal was expelled. The others received suspensions and formal reprimands on their permanent records. I had no objections. The Vances, however, who had rushed to the school, were causing a scene in the principal's office. The old shrew, Sharon, threw herself on the floor. "Call the police! Call them now, this evil woman, Catherine! She assaulted my granddaughter. Look at her face, and now the school is expelling her." I let Brenda, the mistress, make the call. When the officers arrived, the old woman started wailing. "Officers, this woman assaulted my daughter. Assault is a crime. Arrest her. Take her away." Ethan stood to the side, silent, a smug, triumphant look on his face. It was as if he was saying, "See, Catherine, I told you. You'll be begging me to come back and fix this." I turned to him, my eyes wide and pleading, my voice trembling with manufactured weakness. "Ethan, darling, say something." A flicker of glee crossed his face. He puffed out his chest and stepped forward, as if galvanized. "Officers, a misunderstanding. This is all a terrible misunderstanding. This is my wife, Catherine, and this is my daughter, Crystal. My wife is her stepmother, a mother disciplining her child. It's a family matter, nothing serious." The officer frowned. "Sir, you can't discipline a child like this. That's assault. It could be considered abuse." Ethan was quick on his feet. "It's just that the girl has been acting out. She was caught stealing from her sister. My wife is known for being the kindest, gentlest person alive. She was just pushed to her limit. Really, she has the patience of a saint." Sharon and Brenda looked utterly bewildered. They were clearly not expecting their fearless leader to become a star witness for the defense. But they were so used to following his lead that they simply stood there, dumbfounded. Only Crystal kept fighting. "Dad, what are you doing? You told me Catherine and Tessa were just a couple of stuck up bitches, you—" Crack. Ethan slapped his own daughter across the face. He turned back to the police, smiling placidly. "See, officers. This girl, she just wasn't raised right. She needs a firm hand." The police, seeing a family that was apparently united in its story, gave a warning and left. Tessa returned to class. The Vances, assuming the crisis was averted, followed me out of the school and stood by the curb, waiting for me to give them a ride in my car. I didn't even glance at them. I got into my convertible with my friends, put the top down, and sped away, leaving them standing in a cloud of exhaust. On the road, Ethan's calls blew up my phone. I ignored them all. I took my friends to a private club, ordered a round of cocktails served by handsome young waiters, and we toasted to the day's victory. "But it's not over yet," I said, admiring the young man pouring champagne. Life without a husband was looking brighter by the second. Ethan has skimmed a lot of money and resources from Sterling over the years. I want it all back, every last cent. I timed my return perfectly, getting home just before Tessa's school bus arrived. It was a comical sight. The Vances were sitting on my front steps, like beggars. When they saw my car, 3 of them, Ethan, Sharon, and Brenda, plastered on fawning, obsequious smiles. Crystal just glared. Ethan walked over, opening his arms for a hug. "Sweetheart, you are finally back. Let's not fight anymore, okay? Let's just be a family and live our lives." I took a step back, out of his reach. "Who's a family with you?" His expression hardened. "But today, in front of the police, you—" "Oh, that," I said with a laugh. "I was acting. What's the matter, you trashy parasite? You think you are the only one who knows how to put on a show. I thought I'd take a page from your book." Ethan's face turned black. He gritted his teeth. "Catherine, are you playing games with me?" I nodded, my expression deadly serious. "Yes, I am. You don't want to sign the divorce papers. Fine, then we'll see each other in court. We'll go through a full financial disclosure, and my lawyers will make sure you leave with nothing but the clothes on your back." Unsurprisingly, the very next day, Ethan agreed to the divorce. Of course he did. He needed capital to start his own venture and take his revenge. A nasty public court battle where he ended up with zero assets would ruin him before he even began. The mandatory cooling off period passed. We met at the courthouse and signed the final papers. As we walked out, he was holding Brenda's hand. He looked at me, his eyes cold. "Catherine, you really think you are as smart as your mother? You just wait. You'll watch Sterling Enterprises crumble, and then you'll realize what a mistake you made divorcing me." "Oh, I'll be waiting," I said with a smile. I never considered hiding the divorce from my daughter. That evening, I showed her the finalized decree. "Sweetheart, from now on, you and Mommy are the same. We don't have a father." Tessa had been doing much better recently. Leo reported that since my visit to the school, the bullying had stopped completely. She had become more confident, and had even made some good friends. I had prepared myself to comfort her, to brace her for the pain. Instead, she wrapped her arms around me in a tight hug. "Mom, I lost my father a long time ago," she said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "The day he brought Crystal home and let her steal my things, the man I knew was gone. But it doesn't matter if I don't have a father, because, Mom, I have you." Tears pricked my eyes. This girl, my daughter, was so wonderful. A wave of guilt washed over me. My own childhood had been so tumultuous. My greatest wish was to give her a life completely different from mine, a life of safety and unconditional love. But, just like my mother, I had chosen the wrong man, and in the end she had been forced to grow up too fast. "I am so sorry, my little princess," I whispered. "Mom let you down." She pulled back, shaking her head and smiling through her own tears. "No, you didn't. You are still the kindest, most wonderful mother in the world. Even when you were slapping Crystal's face, I still thought you were being gentle." Whoa. My daughter really did see me through rose-colored glasses. Ethan's revenge began swiftly. His loyalists at Sterling resigned one by one, taking a few key investors and several department heads with them. He started a new company with a laughably pretentious name, Apex Pinnacle. Whatever. A pinnacle is just something to be knocked down. His company's business model was an exact replica of Sterling's. Using the contacts he'd cultivated on my family's dime, he managed to poach a few contracts, causing a noticeable dip in our quarterly profits. The day our Q1 financial reports came out, my agent Leo sent me a screenshot. Crystal had posted a picture on her private Instagram story, a shopping receipt for over $10,000. The caption read, "Starting my new life right." Leo texted, "Aunt Cat, want me to go in there and roast her?" "No need, sweetie," I replied. "The Vance family bankruptcy is just around the corner. Save your best material for the grand finale." "Roger that, Aunt Cat. You have to spend money to make money, or in this case, you have to lose a little to win a lot." Ethan was ambitious but cautious. Starting a new company, he wouldn't dare take a massive risk right away. Not when Sterling was still a dominant force in the market. I had to give him a taste of victory, make him believe he had me on the ropes. To sell the illusion that I was crippled by his departure, I took the grim financial report and stormed into his new office. "Ethan Vance, what is the meaning of this?" I demanded, throwing the papers on his desk. "Are you trying to steal my business?" He leaned back in his chair, feet on his desk, a look of pure contempt on his face. "Catherine, I told you, putting you in charge was a death sentence for Sterling. You know, you could always beg me. If you beg nicely, maybe I'll consider taking you back." I bit my lip, playing the part of the humiliated ex-wife in your dreams. I spun around, stormed out of his office, and sobbed while waiting for the elevator. Just as the doors were closing, Brenda slipped in. She held up her left hand, ostentatiously admiring a new, gaudy diamond ring on her finger. "Catherine, I have to thank you for having such terrible judgment. If you had any sense, you never would have divorced a brilliant man like Ethan. Honestly, I thought I'd have to fight much harder to take your place." I had to thank her, too. I was about to break character and laugh, but she forced me to continue my performance. I wiped a tear from my eye and said with a defiant sniffle, "You are nothing, a cheap replacement. I still have Sterling Enterprises. With my family's fortune, if I wanted Ethan back, it would be the easiest thing in the world. Brenda's face tightened. Don't worry, she hissed. I will never give you that chance. After the divorce, I'd had my friends put a pie on Ethan. We'd get together every few days for updates. But honestly, it was pretty boring. All predictable corporate espionage and predictable affairs. But Brenda's comment in the elevator sparked an idea. I told the pie to start tailing her as well. Bingo. It took less than 3 days to get something explosive. The kind of stuff that ruins lives. It turned out Brenda had a long-time lover on the side. In just 3 days, they had 3 secret rendezvous. The pie, a true professional, even got audio recordings of their encounters and photos. I stared at the picture of Brenda's lover, a dark, burly man. But his eyes, his brow. I froze. Geez, I said, passing the photo to my friends. Tell me Crystal doesn't look exactly like him. They all peered at the photo, then looked at each other in shock. No way, Chloe breathed. Oh yes way, anything was possible. If Brenda could be Ethan's mistress, she could certainly cheat on him too. The woman had no moral compass, and besides, Ethan had spent most of his time with me over the years. A woman like Brenda gets lonely. I had the pie do a background check on the lover. Sure enough, he was from the same small town as her. This, I said with a slow, wicked smile, is going to be a show? I couldn't wait to see the look on Ethan's face when this particular house of cards came crashing down. The second quarter was even worse for Sterling Enterprises. The company posted another loss. I was forced to announce another round of layoffs. I even put our family mansion on the market, and it sold in less than 3 days. Tessa and I moved out, taking up residence in Chloe's guest house. To the outside world, Sterling Enterprises looked like a sinking ship. I was seen everywhere, running myself ragged, desperately trying to find a lifeline to save the company. Finally, I found it. A massive multinational contract. Even though the company had taken a hit for 2 quarters, our reputation and infrastructure were still solid. If I could land this deal, it would not only salvage the entire year, but also cement my own authority in the industry. Future contracts would be guaranteed. I prepared a mountain of data and personally flew out to negotiate the deal. After 2 solid weeks of relentless work, the client finally agreed to sign. On the day of the signing, I arrived at their corporate headquarters, contract in hand, only to see Ethan Vance walking out of the building, beaming, looking smug and victorious in a tailored suit. "Catherine," he said, shaking his head with mock pity, "you might as well prepare for bankruptcy, and by the way, I am no longer interested in getting back together." "What are you talking about?" He gestured to the briefcase held by his assistant. "The deal you were chasing, I just signed it." "That's impossible." "Why is it impossible?" Ethan was supremely confident. "I've secured partnerships with all the factories you used to work with. Any contract you can fulfill, I can fulfill better." I was speechless with rage. I spun around and stormed back into the building, straight to the CEO's office. Inside, I slammed my hand on his desk and yelled at him, following the script we had prepared. "What is the meaning of this? You promised me that contract. How could you give it to Ethan Vance?" "Promised you." He read his line, feigning boredom. "Was there a signed agreement? Without a contract, it's all just talk." "Mrs. Vance, no wonder people say you are not cut out for business. You should go back home and be a housewife." After the last line of our little play, I smiled and shook his hand. "Thank you for your support." "My pleasure," he replied with a wink. And it was, after all, he was my friend Zoe's new husband. I'd be sure to give them a very generous wedding gift. Now, all I had to do was wait. I took a sick leave and let the drama unfold. A month later, just as I had planned, the blow landed on the proud and triumphant Ethan Vance. A fatal blow. He was right. Any contract I could take, he could take. We relied on the same production network. The problem was, he didn't actually know what that network was. He had assumed the factories he'd spoken to were already in production. He was so confident that he took his new family on a 2-week Caribbean vacation. A month after signing the deal, he started calling the factory managers to check on progress, only to be met with confusion. Progress? Sorry, Mr. Vance, I don't know what you are talking about. What do you mean, you don't know? Let me see the contract. Contract, Ethan? Are you joking? When have our companies ever needed a formal contract between us? Ethan was completely baffled. He rushed to the largest of the partner factories, and there he found me, looking healthy and vibrant, walking alongside the factory owner, inspecting the production line. Catherine, what are you doing here? The factory owner frowned. Mrs. Sterling is here because this is her factory. That single sentence made the blood drain from Ethan's face. I walked up to him, smiling at his naivete. My mother always said a woman needs to be independent. She can't rely on a man for everything. She always has to keep something for herself. Did you really think she would let you in on every single one of the Sterling family's assets? I checked my watch. Ethan, you have 3 days left to deliver on that contract. You can't. The penalty for default. That should be enough to bankrupt you, don't you think? He shook his head, still refusing to believe it. How is this possible? You laid people off. You sold the house. I rolled my eyes. Who said they were laid off? They were on a company, paid team, building crews to Alaska. They're all back at work today. And the house, please? It was sold to a shell corporation owned by my best friend. Ethan stumbled back, then turned and sprinted out of the factory. He still had a sliver of hope. He rushed to the other factories on his list, and discovered they were also Sterling family properties. He was completely and utterly ruined. He came to my new, more modest home. He knelt on the porch and begged me, Catherine, for the sake of everything we once were, please, help me this one time. Can you really stand to see me go bankrupt? He tried to grab my legs, and I kicked him away. Why wouldn't I? If it weren't illegal, I would have stabbed you myself. Go find someone else who pities a cheating, manipulative bastard. His mother came too, knocking her head on the pavement, begging for my forgiveness. It was all my fault. My son is a good man. I am the one who told him to bring Brenda home. I was wrong. I'll be your servant for the rest of my life to make it up to you. The old shrew disgusted me. Don't torture me. You ruined my life in this lifetime. You think I want anything to do with you in the next. They were about to continue their pathetic display when Tessa came out with 2 security guards from our gated community. These people do not live here, she said, her voice clear and firm. They are trespassing and harassing my mother and me. Please escort them off the property. I looked at my daughter's young face and saw, for a flicker of a second, a flash of steel in her eyes. I was so proud. She had my fire after all. Ethan Vance went bankrupt. On the day his company's assets were seized, I, of course, took Tessa to watch the show. My friends were even more dramatic, hiring a brass band to play a funeral march on either side of his office building. When Ethan saw me, his eyes were red and swimming with tears, but he knew begging me was useless. He tried to salvage a scrap of dignity. He put one arm around Brenda and held Crystal's hand with the other. It's okay, he said, his voice cracking. Even though I've lost everything, I still have you two. As long as I have my family, I, Ethan Vance, can rise again. His mother nodded vigorously beside him. That's right. Crystal is clearly a better child than Tessa, a true Vance. I almost died laughing. I pulled out the envelope I had prepared and handed it to him. A paternity test. He tore it open. This is fake. It has to be. Here is no way Crystal isn't a Vance. Brenda, seeing the game was up, shoved Ethan away and pulled Crystal to her side. She's not his daughter, she said flatly. Crystal is my daughter with Gus. Her break was clean and ruthless. Ethan, I have no interest in helping you pay off your debts. We're talking millions. The way you are now, you couldn't pay it off in a lifetime. Crystal and I are going to live with Gus. At least he owns a farm with 12 pigs. Don't ever bother us again. With that, she and Crystal walked away toward a dusty pickup truck that had just pulled up to the curb. Ethan and his mother were left standing there, utterly dumbstruck. After a long moment of silence, the two of them turned, fell into each other's arms, and began to wail. I had no more interest in the show. I linked arms with my friends and my daughter, turning away from the wreckage. So, I said, How should we celebrate today? Chloe grinned. I am thinking champagne and seafood towers. Mia chimed in, followed by a weekend at the spa. Tessa looked up at me, a real bright smile finally reaching her eyes. Can we get ice cream? Of course, sweetheart, I said, squeezing her hand. We can get whatever you want.